Alright everyone, welcome along. Something for the weekend. Before we go any further, if you haven't already, why don't you click like and subscribe below, hit the little bell icon and you'll be notified whenever some new videos come out from the channel. And if you'd love us, stick a comment on and let us know what you liked. Let me know as well what you don't like, so we can help tune the content we make and we produce to make it more useful to use. So the issue I was finding with shapefiles, and this is one that I hit across as well when I was doing the food hygiene data set as well. So there's different local authority groupings depending on who you are from a government department side in the UK. In the US, surprise, surprise, there's different names depending on who you are and different boundaries as well, depending on what you're doing. So kind of anything to do with government, you're going to find there's different maps. So what I was getting into really was around the shapefiles. So we've got a process where we can build and add and create new shapefiles for things. So let's head on into Power BI and have a look at some examples and see if we can get to the point where we're happy and we understand really, what to do. Alright, so here we are, Power BI service, okay? This is our free New York taxi report, okay? Hopefully you've all clicked through, gone and had a look at the article on geordieintelligence.co.uk, and on there's the link that you can go and view this report, okay? Now, the way it works is, of course, with these maps here, that, like for humans, and this is one of those things that the human brain is very visually orientated. And that's why maps are such a big ask when we look at analytics platforms. They kind of express so much information. If you think, here is this map here, right? This one, okay? Do you understand that? Yeah, you can see. And like, I can see, yeah, and that, I know that area. Oh, why that's yellow there. What's, okay? I can make viewpoints, I can understand it, okay? If I was to say to you, show it as a table, and we let it go away and come back with this, okay? Just as good? Yeah? No? Oh, okay. So why is that not as good? And the reality is it's not as good because humans are visually centric, visually centered. We consume information visually. The shapefile or the map is easier to understand. Okay, that really makes it clear to us what it is. But, okay, at no point are we presenting real geographic data in our data set. So the New York taxi data set and the equivalent that we've got in over here, let's get this one full size, okay, is, it says, well, this data point here, or this row in the database relates to Forest Hills. Doesn't say what Forest Hills is, doesn't even say where Forest Hills is. So the reality is there's no geographical information there whatsoever. So that leads to a problem. Frankly, there's a problem there, okay? And the solution is, well, you can try and run it through a search engine to relate, does Forest Hills exist in New York or anywhere else? Okay? And it would help if you built a hierarchy to say we're actually going to be in New York and then do something else. So we'd probably end up having to go like USA, New York State, New York, I think, yeah? Or we might have to go USA, New York State, Manhattan, which is what finance, the maps are different. You go here, you go to the taxis, they're different. So there's no geographical information, and a lookup would be the only way we could go. But that's going to take time. And if you think if I've got rows upon rows of data, so like this one, where we know we've got over 300 million, normally, when it's not on, okay, where we've got X many million rows, okay, something is happening. And that something is that we need to understand. Well, what we need to understand really is how can we maximize the speed and performance of our data set to push that through. And where we don't have geographical information, but we just have like a place name, like Forest Hills, like Finance District South. What we need to have, or what is useful, is to have something that places it. And that's what shapefiles are about. So shapefiles are these GeoJSON format files. Power BI asks you to do a couple of specific things with them, and I'll go through and do a demo of how we did the New York taxi one, and take you through a couple of things with that. That then allows the database, which is what Power BI is behind the scenes, to map point data for aggregation, so rows in a table, to that point or shape in the shapefile. But the shapefile isn't aware, is that the right word? Isn't geographically focused. So it isn't, and that's where it then becomes more complicated when we say, right, so that's one way to do it. An alternative way, right, and it's the way that we did it for the food hygiene report, okay, is this way. So for our 400,000 data points, that's too many to plot on a map, on a scatter chart even. It's 400,000 data points isn't gonna, right? You ain't going anywhere with that. So what we've done is we've plotted the authorities on here. And you can then go through and see, by hovering over it, what's happening in any particular authority. And we could then choose to pick one. So if I go, well, we're in Newcastle, we want to go into Newcastle, let's zoom in and see what's going on in Newcastle upon Tyne. And that all works, doesn't it? Okay. Now, the way I've built this to use the same map consistently was that the local authority map, what we've done is we've used an average of the latitude and longitude, okay? So what we've got in this data set is latitude and longitude. And that means that each row is effectively location aware. It knows where it is, right? And because it knows where it is, or there's a corresponding point on a map to it, we can overlay these points on a map that actually has roads and other things. Shapefiles you can't do that with. This is kind of the bit I'm trying to get you towards, is that when you're using maps, okay, and not the ones that we can use with the free, but because there are some limitations that we get with the free. We can still have roads and things. So we can still zoom in a bit and see roads, so we can still plan the journey that we would need to take to get to anywhere. It's, oh, brilliant, I want to go and eat this place. Okay? We can't do that with shapefiles. With shapefiles, kind of zoom in and that's what you get. You don't have, there's not a corresponding shape. If we go back to here, so if we look here and we zoom in and we zoom in, you can see there isn't actually any detail. There isn't a place, is what I'm saying. There's a shape, and it says a lot about the human brain that we can interpret that this shape is New York City, but there isn't the map of New York there. Whereas if I used GPS coordinates, latitude, longitude, or anything like that, we do get that information. And in fact, if we go back to the water tower data set, and we look at some of the other bits that are available in it, so if you remember we said here, like this map, this is where we've used the latitude and longitude to build it up. So as we zoom in, we see we get more information, and we can find out that the continental, which is here, that's the continental. Shh, I didn't tell you. Right, has still got this building here, the post office, 76 Beaver Street, that hasn't been had its water inspection recently. Okay, so there's swings, roundabouts, trade-offs, and all sorts that you will have to do. It comes down to really what's the goal of what you're looking for, is what I would say. And what we'll do is we'll go through, we'll build one, and we'll then actually look and see what we can do with it as well. Okay, so I'll just go over, let's start building that shapefile. All right, so when you're making shapefiles, first thing you need is some kind of a shapefile to start with. Hopefully, you'll be able to find one from a data set. Okay, you can Google them. For the UK government, there's a lot on the data.gov. For New York Taxi data set, it was here on the webpage. I think there was something similar in the water tower one as well. But the principle is always the same. So we'll go through and we'll have a look at what's involved. Because what you need to do is build up this XML format that's got shape information, so how to draw a shape, that's going to enable Power BI to render that visual layer, and then it's got something that's going to allow it to connect those shapes to the data structure that you've built. So for us, what we need is something that's got zones and where they're going to be, okay, for the New York taxi data. So on there, they've got this, they call it a CSV, it's actually a zip file. And what you want to do once you get that is you need to go over to the website, and it's called mapshaper.org. And that site is going to allow you to convert different types of shapefile. So my advice would be get used to coming here. If you get shapefiles from somewhere, bring them here, put them through the same routine, and fingers crossed, they'll work good and proper for you in Power BI. So I've downloaded our zip file as a starter. Let's bring that in. Show you that. Okay, here it is. So all I need to do is just drag and drop it onto my page, and it picks up. All right, you want to bring in this file? Yeah, I do. I'll bring in this one. I'm going to click import, and straight away you get your map, and you say, "Oh, I've done my map. Great. All I need to do now is go export. I need what? I don't know what." Okay, and that's part of the issue. So this is where we need to get that little bit further. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure that it's a compatible shape that we've got to then build the file from and produce the export from. So the way we do that is we go onto the console. So we left click on the console on the top. Then on the console, what you need to do is write, and it's case sensitive. So we write info, and we get this piece of information about the shape. So it's telling us how many records there are, it's telling us information about it. But the key piece is this CRS, which tells us a bit about the projection. Okay, and I can tell you now that's not a compatible projection. The compatible projection is this WGS 84. Okay. Not sure what it all stands for. I might look that up and put a comment. If a comment comes up, I looked it up. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to tell it to change the projection. So what we're going to do is type it in. So proj, change projection, like move to projection, WGS 84. Okay, and you kind of get used to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand at the side, and I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see the difference. Ta-da! Okay. It's not that impressive, okay, but the difference is it's changed the way that the file is built. So now Power BI, which has a particular way of processing shape information, will be able to manage it and process it effectively. And if we type in info again, I hope you can see that there is a difference in the projection. So the projection is now lat long or long lat with this datum WGS 84. Okay, So there's a clear change in the way it's structured. So now what we can do is, back on our shapefile, is let's click export. And we want to tell it that we're going to export a TopoJSON. TopoJSON, okay? Export. What I want you to think is, hang on, we've built a map, haven't we? Okay, we've built this map, but it's not a map, is it? And this is why I'm saying, shapefiles, they're not maps, right? For all Power BI tells you, I'm building a shape map. It's not a map, okay, as such, okay? It is instead a visualization based on what it can see, or where you've allocated space on a white plane or on a plane for corresponding lookups, so aggregation points. Okay, I know it's subtle, but it's a difference. One of those things. You need to kind of make sure there's that connection, because what it means is you can use shapefiles for a lot more than just presenting maps. You could, in theory, present business process information that way as well. Okay, all comes down to getting the shapefiles, and because they're XML based, in theory, you can write them from scratch, or you might find you can find them. So let's go in here. So we've got my Power BI desktop file that I've opened up. It's already connected to the New York taxi data set. I want to tell it, I'm saying, well, I want to go build a shape file, shape map. So I'm going to click on there, shape map. Shape map this time is going to be based on me zones, me locations, and I want journeys. Me color saturation, okay? So I've done that. And Power BI has impressed me by presenting, here's a map of the USA, right, with Hawaii and Alaska in the wrong place. Don't know why, maybe Alaska. Right? What we need to do is to say, let's change it. So to present it with a different shapefile, like everything in Power BI, you get used to clicking on the paint roller, paintbrush, paint roller, format that visual. And down here in the list of custom areas relative to the visual, you've got shape. And we click on shape, we can find, we've got the available ones, so the preloaded ones that we've got, or you can bring in your own one. So I'm going to bring in our own one, click the add map. It's going to ask us which one do we want to pick. We're going to pick the right one for this one, for the New York file that we've just built, and we've just downloaded, and I now have a map. And in it, I can choose to change some of the projections, which just helps make it use the space available more effectively. And honestly, sometimes some visuals you find they break if you switch between them. This one at the moment isn't. This is fine in terms of the JSON file. Switching between the projections helps them fit to the page for you. And it's kind of that, where are you using it? What size do you want it to be? How do you want it to render? Is going to be more important to that. You can then go through and do the rest of the shaping for it as you see fit. So what do you reckon then? It's relatively simple to decide, I want to use shapefiles. Okay, it's dead simple to be saying, these shapefiles are maps. Okay? That's a really clear thing to do. And the problem is that unless in your mind you separate shapefile from map, you get drawn into the wrong mindsets at times. So because a shapefile has just top level shape information, it's that like 50,000 foot view, it is awesome. Okay, not having the roads, not having anything, it can be brilliant. But there's other projections you can do on the maps that kind of help it. And if you are going to use shapefiles, you then have to make sure your data quality is good. But maps data quality makes all the difference anyway. We've seen that in the food hygiene data where we've got, for all we said, look, we're focusing on England, there are data points that are up in Lerwick and Shetland, which I put it to them, they ain't based there. So somehow someone has made a mistake, and it's not me. So the goal really is around understanding what is it that is required by this shape, by this map, by this visual, and what makes it more efficient. And if you have just got like a borough or a zone information, like we've got with the New York taxi data set, then a shapefile is going to be much more efficient than building that hierarchy and feeding that into something like Bing Maps or, well, it's Bing Maps really, isn't it? Or you can use Azure Maps if you're not going to share it free, and then have a lookup happen, because slower. And we touched on that with the other video, didn't we? Where we talked about high density sampling rates within Power BI and actually what happens. And shapefiles are a great way of avoiding that, because really you're presenting this is what you want to fill, and fill your boots with it, son. And it does a good enough job that it's very effective, but it's not perfect, and there needs to be an awareness about it. So if you've got this, people want to then zoom in, shape maps just aren't going to work for you. The converse of that is that shape maps will work beyond mapping. So you could build, for a school, you could build where all your classrooms are. For an office, you could build a shapefile that had these are our meeting rooms. You could do all sorts of things like that and actually then have that information presented live, real time, whatever it was you needed, available in that shape file structure. And that works for you. So be prepared to say, well, I'm going to learn how to do shape files, or I'm going to build shape files, or I'm going to find out really what we can do to do that. And I'll find some more resources to help with that. But it's important to understand where you are. And as I say, different sources for different things. Don't be afraid to go to the internet, Google it, Bing it, whatever, DuckDuckGo it, any other search engine, Alta Vista. Does that still exist? I don't know. Right? But the main thing is you need to be aware that if you want shapefiles, you're going to have to look for them. Once you've found one that works for your business, I'll kind of keep a tight hold of it. Right? Build the necessary TopoJSON from it using mapshaper.org, and then put it into your documentation. Hey, this is our shapefile, and if we need to make any changes to it, we know who's going to make those changes and how. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you're going to have a great weekend. Main thing, let's keep staying safe, keep healthy, look after each other. And there's still a lot of stuff going on with the COVID and with other things, right? So, it's important to stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Ta-da.